Is this a conversation, and sorry to cut you off, but is this a conversation you and peers, meaning entrepreneurs on Bitcoin, are having? Because I'm not seeing, my question is, I'm not seeing a ton of people building on Bitcoin. Maybe I'm not in the right circles, but I'm not seeing that happen.
No,
There's Udi and the Wizards, where I think they're the most prominent ones, controversial probably. Other than that,
there's not a lot. I mean, okay, so Bitcoin is really hard to build on. That's one, not a problem, but because Bitcoin's made for one function, so it's difficult to build on. You had in 2023 Ordinals, the Ordinal protocol launched, and for the first time ever, you had high sustained demand for Bitcoin block space, and it wasn't for making peer-to-peer transactions; it was for NFTs, which is a really kind of a silly use case if we're really thinking about it. But nonetheless, it created the largest amount of fees paid to Bitcoin miners in Bitcoin history. And so that was the first time where you saw the narrative shift a little bit around Bitcoin for, there was a lot of attention and interest from people who are not just buy and hold Bitcoin people on, what if I could do more with Bitcoin? And it sort of sparked this idea that had been tried in a number of different ways, rootstock or stacks, et cetera, of, if you could do NFTs on Bitcoin, then what would a DeFi ecosystem look like with Bitcoin? You know, the idea really behind DeFi, the core principle of DeFi is liquidity, right? The place where the most liquidity exists is the place where DeFi should thrive the most. So that is like the basic narrative around Bitcoin DeFi. The problem is, and has been, that building it on Bitcoin itself is an extreme challenge. So the majority of people just build a totally separate network and then build a bridge to Bitcoin and then call it a Bitcoin layer 2. So that goes for stacks or rootstock or any of the 100 Bitcoin layer 2s that came out since 2023. You saw basically a VC feeding frenzy on to try and capture this, Bitcoin DeFi narrative. There was probably 1,000 pitch decks that went out that said there's $2 trillion of value on Bitcoin. And with my layer 2 solution, we're going to tap into it. We're going to activate all this BTC. And what happened, I was from early 2023 looking to invest in DeFi opportunities with Bitcoin. And I read a lot of these decks and had a lot of these opportunities, and I passed on every single one of them because my opinion at the time, and I told a lot of founders this, is that that's never going to happen. You're never going to build a completely separate blockchain from Bitcoin that requires Bitcoiners to leave the chain and bridge or whatever. You're not going to build a side system to Bitcoin that's going to gain any amount of adoption. The way that I looked at it, and I think the way that most Bitcoiners look at it, is if my first step to get access to DeFi or whatever opportunity is I leave Bitcoin entirely, well, why wouldn't I just use Ethereum? Ethereum has more liquidity, a better application ecosystem, and way more battle-tested protocols that there's opportunity already on Ethereum for DeFi if you have Bitcoin. You can leave Bitcoin and bridge to Ethereum, or you can wrap your Bitcoin. There are a number of different ways you can get there. The fact is, Bitcoiners don't want to leave Bitcoin. And I think that the overall size of the market of Bitcoiners at this current stage that are interested in DeFi is actually generally somewhat small. And I think that is because you don't have access to native DeFi applications. So people kind of jump the gun when we're thinking about Bitcoin DeFi as a concept. Because Ethereum has so many great examples of what DeFi looks like, people immediately want to say, okay, I need lending protocols and I need perp dexes with Bitcoin. Think about all the great things you could do on Ethereum. But Bitcoin right now has no native smart contract functionality, not even the ability to issue a smart contract based asset or build an application that lives on Bitcoin. So how can you expect Bitcoiners to just jump into Aave style lending if you have not even the base level of primitive? That's like saying I want to build Amazon.com before the internet even exists, So that's really where we came from when we were thinking and designing our protocol. And I'll say that confidently that we're the only one in the entire market that has built a solution that looks like this and functions like this, because we built it fully natively to Bitcoin layer 1. What does that mean? It means that we don't have an extra gas token. You don't have to bridge your assets or leave Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form. All you're doing is making Bitcoin transactions. You're using Bitcoin in the exact same way that you use ETH on Ethereum to interact with dApps.